Hey everybody! Oh, I'm leaving the wrong way. Okay, that's fine though. I'm here to tell you guys about, or at least update you on the Burning Gladiator build, also known as the Blockdown Warrior build. It was an old Bootspad build from a long time ago. I haven't played it in a while because after specializations came out, there were more things to try out, etc., etc. I've been trying to make builds with Warrior. There was a really bad Bootspad build a while ago that was pure like rousing resilience spam. Um, but but I went back to Burning Gladiator because I wanted to see how it does in an updated version. I brought in Berserker into the build, and it works very well. So like you probably saw, I did a little video yesterday. I just put out a PvP ranked match because the season's just started, and I think it was like the second or third match I did at all in seasons. But it was a pretty good match, and since then I've gone like on a 6-game winning streak, and so I'm like 8 out of 9 games played. So I feel pretty certain that this build is not actually crap, and it's actually quite a good build. The updated version, that is. Maybe it's definitely not meta yet. It won't be meta probably ever, but it is a lot of fun to play, and it is viable in my opinion. So I will get on with it. So it's called the Blockdown Warrior because what does it do? It blocks a lot, and it locks people down. Because it is based off of stunning people a lot and dazing people a lot, interrupting them basically, and also blocking all their attacks. So I think I'm going to talk about gear first, and then go on to like the intricacies of the build. So gear-wise, I'm going mace, sword, sword, shield. So I always have a block available, essentially. You got your block here, you got your block here, you got your block here, and as a berserker, well, I'll talk to you about that in a second, but as a berserker you got a block here with Shattering Blow, which is a utility block that you didn't have before, and it's actually quite strong. It's a half-second block, so it's not that long, but it is effective. And what are you doing with all these blocks? Well, you're running Rune of the Guardian. And Rune of the Guardian, it gives you a little bit of toughness, gives you a little bit of healing. Those are always fun stats. But more importantly, when you block a foe's attack, burn that foe for 1 second. And that has no internal cooldown as far as I could tell. So since it has no internal cooldown, if your foe is attacking you in melee really quickly, for whatever reason, maybe it's a spin attack, maybe it's riposting shadows, who knows, you are going to be stacking up a lot of burning just from blocking their attacks. This is especially useful when you're using shield stance, because that's the one that doesn't stop when it blocks a melee attack. Same thing with Shattering Blow, it doesn't stop when you block a melee attack, it just continues for the other half second, but the 3-second duration of this is where you're going to be getting a lot of damage in melee. On top of that, this will block and do... so every time you block, essentially, you're going to be doing about 600 damage of burning damage, because due to your expertise and the additional burning duration things you have on your build, you're having 90% burning duration, which means that instead of 1 second burning, it's 1.9 seconds burning. And yeah, so it ends up being about 600 damage per block. I'm also running, to get that burning duration up, some Sigils of Smoldering and Sigils of Generosity, because one of the weaknesses of this build is probably the conditions put on you, so you want to get them off, or you want to resist them. So I'll talk about that in a bit, but going on with the equipment. I'm using Viper's Amulet because it's got a nice array of power, precision, condition damage, and condition duration. I don't have any vitality or toughness in this, or healing power except for from the amulet, because you're going to be sustaining yourself a lot through other means. So you still have a lot of base toughness, a lot of base health from Warrior, and on top of that, you have your healing signet, which gives you 387 health per second, and when you go into the traits, you have this beautiful little trait, which when you're using your burst skills, which you do often, you are going to basically always be having an additional 500 health per second ticking off on you. So that means you have 800 health per second ticking off on you all the time, essentially. Is that enough? Well, that's a good question. Usually it's not enough when you're getting hit all the time, but because this build is basically the most blocky build in the game, you aren't getting hit all the time. You're evading a lot of stuff, you're blocking everything else. So if you take a lot of damage, you block through whatever other spikes coming at you, and you're probably going to be able to heal up after that because you're just sort of avoiding and mitigating all the damage coming at you, meanwhile healing up at 800 per tick. Conditions are a problem because even if you block through a lot of stuff, if someone had put a lot of conditions on you to begin with, when you're blocking, you're still going to be taking damage because you have conditions on you. So you got to get rid of them. That's why the sigils are there, sigils of generosity. But on top of that, you have Berserker Stance, which gives you about, what is it? It's a 9-second duration. Every 3 seconds you get 3 seconds of resistance. So that ends up, I think, being around 12 seconds of resistance straight. 9 or 12 seconds of resistance straight. And so that means that those conditions aren't going to be doing any damage to you for the duration of this resistance. And that's usually enough to get them all to disappear from you, especially if you're blocking. So in that 12-second time, while you're blocking, you're not taking any damage. You'll probably heal up to full because you're healing at 800 per tick. So at 10 seconds, let's say, that's 8,000 health that you're healing just flat out. And then at that time, the resistance will wear out. If you still have conditions on you, it will be a lot less than before. But if it's not a lot less than before, you can still use your healing signet, which gives you another 6 seconds of resistance, which means another 3,000 health healed. And yeah, so it's pretty strong. So the idea of this build is to sort of wait out the other player. You're tanky because you mitigated a lot of damage with your blocks, and you heal up when you're mitigating. On top of that, you have other ways of healing. So let's go over the traits now. In Berserker, you go Last Blaze. There's a few other options. You could do some other things, but if you want the most damage dealing one, you go Last Blaze, which means every time you use a rage skill, you do about 1,500 damage in burning to everybody around you. You got rage skills in your Headbutt on a 20-second cooldown, on your Outrage on a 10-second cooldown, on your Shattering Blow on a 15-second cooldown, and of course on your Berserk. So that's a lot of extra damage just from this trait. Now, then you're going to have Dead or Alive. Take fatal damage. Taking fatal damage while in Berserk mode will heal you. When you're in Berserk mode, you won't die. You'll go back up to 5,000 health, giving you that extra little bit of sustain, making you able to come back into a fight when everybody thinks you're dead. Then you got King of Fires. Very, very important skill. It gives you 33% burning duration increase, which helps get it up to 90. Also, it has this little interesting thing where if you get a critical hit every 15 seconds, you get a fire aura. And then when you use a rage skill, you detonate that fire aura to do an additional 3 stacks of burning. That's 4,400 damage. Very, very, very strong. This build will be doing critical hits about a third of the time, so you will be getting that fire shield. You could also do leaps through some fire fields, but we don't actually have any fire fields generated from this build, but there's going to be some lying around. I mean, that's where Torch might be a little bit better, but I really enjoy the blocks a lot more. Like, I guess instead of the offhand sword, you could go Torch, but I wouldn't recommend it, because the block is great. It does a lot of bleeding damage as well when it retaliates, and the Torment is fantastic from this thing, the ranged Torment. But yeah, so King of Fires, you get your fire shield on critical hits, and then you detonate it for a lot of burning. So Shield Master, whenever you block, you gain might. Recharge of shield skills is reduced. Fantastic. Makes this on a 20-second cooldown, this on a 16-second cooldown. And when a ranged attack hits you, you reflect it instead. Very good. The only problem is that kind of like interacts with each other in a bad way, meaning that when ranged attacks hit your blocking, you don't actually block them. So you don't get the might, you don't get the fire on the bad guy. It just reflects the attack. So they still take a lot of damage, but you don't get the added perks of the Guardian Runes and the might. Interestingly enough, though, there are some range attacks that do get blocked, like the Ranger Staff attack, the Staff Auto attack, that just blocks, so they'll get ranged fire on them. Very good. here is Adrenal Health. Fantastic. Basically 500 health per second when you're using your burst stills. Defy Pain got upped to a health threshold of 50% instead of 25%. It's much better now. Very, very strong. And then finally, Rousing Resilience is very important. The other skills are quite good too, actually. Cleansing Ire, if you're having a lot of trouble with conditions, you might want that. Last Stand is also very good. You get your balanced stance when you're knocked down. But I take Rousing Resilience because I feel this build is much better with it because it's all about sustain. So there's a lot of CC going out there, and yes, this will take care of 1 CC. But you have a stun break on a 10-second cooldown and one on a 20-second cooldown. You don't need that much more CC. It's pretty much enough as it is. So what it means is every time you break out of a stun, you get another 2,500 health. Very strong, very good, and you get 1,000 toughness. So you're going to be even more resisty. You could even, if you need some healing, you could even like force yourself to get some by headbutting somebody which stuns you and then break out of it. So there you go. That's the defense line. Defense line is probably the best line right now for Warrior. And then finally Strength. You got obviously your distracting strikes because you're doing a lot of stuns. You got one here, you got one here, you got one here, and you got one on your skull crack. Body Blow, you're doing a lot of stuns and stuff like that. Again, you give them extra bleeding, a 1,300, and you give them weakness, meaning you're going to be able to sustain a bit better. And then Death from Above. This one's a little bit weird. You could go Restorative Strength, but you don't use Healing Signet that often. So I went Death from Above because in PvP maps you can find ways to use it to your advantage. There's height differences in a lot of places. You can jump down from things to do a little extra damage and stun them. Which means you could interrupt them, which means you could do all these combos again. So that is the traits, that is the equipment, and I'll tell you a little bit about the intricacies of this thing. So here we have a Guardian. Let's just load him up with some Torment. And so he did that. Now he's going to spin and try to do a lot of damage to you, but I blocked a lot, and I just gave him 5 stacks of burning just from blocking. So 5 stacks of burning for 1.9 seconds, that's around 3,000 damage just from that. So I wasn't even trying that fight there, and he dies pretty easily. So the problem with tanky characters usually is that they can't do that much damage. And when you're blocking somebody, when you're in Crystal Hibernation, you're not damaging somebody. But with this build, when you mitigate damage by blocking, you are dealing damage to them. So the only way people aren't going to be taking damage from you is by not attacking you. And that's not a valid strategy. They got to think of other ways. So Ranger, whatever, let's do some damage to it. He's doing this, block. And then you do your burst, whatever. And he dead. So the good news about this, as opposed to the old Burn on Block build, is that the old Burn on Block build relied almost entirely on the interrupts and on the amount of the little burning you'll get from Burn on Block. But now with Berserker and with the crazy burst skill you get on Skullcrack, on the new Skullcrack, the Grinder or whatever it's called, Skull Grinder, and the Flurry, the new Flurry with the 8 stacks of burning, you can do a huge amount of damage without interrupts and without just being patient and letting them damage themselves. So, like, I'll demonstrate. Just do a little headbutt. This, and you got your 12 stacks of burning. He's taking a ridiculous amount of damage, and he's dead. So that didn't rely on an interrupt at all. The interrupts are just bonuses now. So if someone has stability, it's not that big of a deal anymore. Also, a nice little thing about this build is that with Shattering Blow, with the burst flurry here, that actually it pierces people. The fireballs that it throws when it's bursty pierces people. So with those things, you actually have a lot more cleave than you used to in the old Burn on Block build. The old Burn on Block build was very good 1v1, didn't do very good in any other situation. But now, like, let's say you want to kill the Blue Lord, and nowadays the Blue Lord's a lot hard to kill because they have that stun bar. You can't really solo it anymore, but can you? Maybe you can. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so just loading people up with some damage. Those guys are both dead. Let's go after the Lord now. I probably should have let him stun me there, because then I could have... But look, I'm healing up like crazy. It's like, it's not even funny how much I heal. And the caster's dying, I'm hardly even doing damage to him. Okay, so I'll let him heal here because I've already destroyed his break bar. But let's take him down a notch. Do some real damage to him. And let's bring his break bar down now. I think it's about time. And then some more of this. And he dead. So with this build you could easily solo a Lord. You load them up with condies, you load people up with condies with your bursts, with your interrupts, etc. And then you could block through all the retaliation damage. And then you try to obviously interrupt any way they have to heal themselves from their condies and their clears and their just basic heals. It's very, very strong 1v1, this build. It's pretty good in a team fight, because when people start to realize that they should not be attacking you, they'll stop attacking you, and that'll leave you free to go around and help people pick people off by locking them down and locking down people trying to res people. It's just super strong. I don't know what else to say. I guess that's about it. I can't think of anything else I need to say about this build. So the weaknesses are condies. When you have a ton of condies on you, not just a little, a ton of condies, because you can heal through most condies with your 800 heal per second. When you have a ton of condies on you, pop your Berserker stance. Hopefully the condies will be gone by the time you are no longer resistant. Either that, or hopefully you've killed the person who's trying to kill you in the time that, the condies are there. And another slight weakness is that it's slow. This build is very slow to get around with. You have that one leap, but that's about it. So if you like fast characters, this is not for you. That's about it. Thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. I'll try to edit it so that there's no awkward pauses in it like I did before. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.